There we go. Great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Navigating Change Lunch and Learn webinar. Navigating Change is a program that is led by the Social Policy Institute of San Diego State University in partnership with the San Diego Regional Center and the California Department of Developmental Services, supporting transitional-aged youth age 16 to 22 with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Today's webinar is the fifth in an 8-part series intended to provide information and strategies about how to better support and advocate for these youth and their families during the transition to adult services and beyond. My name is Heather Robert, and I am on staff at the Social Policy Institute. I am a co-lead of project of Navigating Change with our initiative in Imperial County. And I also am a family navigator supporting the parents and siblings of youth with IDD in our program. And today, before we get to our topic, I want to review some brief housekeeping. Today's session is being recorded and it will be posted to YouTube, where you will be able to access previous Lunch and Learn webinars. A follow-up email will be sent with the link. You can turn on captioning for this webinar and have it translated to any language. I wanted to share my screen really quick, which means that I'm going to replace yours really quick, Shor, while I do this. I find this is a very handy thing to know. So this is our Navigating Change homepage. And down here are the links to all of our previously recorded webinars. So I'm just going to pick one of these as an example of showing you how to turn on your closed captioning and change the language. So down on your screen, there is a button to turn on closed captions. If this little CC button isn't there, then you might have to, hit those 3 dots to bring up that option. So first, you will turn on your subtitles or your closed captions. Mine are already in Spanish because I had been playing with this. But then what you'll do is click on the settings cog, and there's an option that says subtitles/CC, and you can see it. If you click on that, it will say English is usually the auto-generated language, but if not, you can click on auto translate and change it into one of dozens of languages that are available. So I'm going to actually switch mine back to English here. So you can do this live while you're watching a webinar, or if you're watching playback on YouTube of a video, they also have that option. So I just wanted to share that to make sure that this is accessible to everyone. So the other piece of information is that at the end of today's webinar, we'll be sharing a link to a feedback survey, and we really encourage you to complete this to let us know how we can continue to deliver programming that matters to you. A link to the survey will also be included in the follow-up email. Lastly, during today's webinar, you're encouraged to participate in the interactive questions posed by our presenter. You can post your responses in the chat, as well as any other questions or comments that come up for you during the presentation. So today's speaker is Shor Denny. In addition to supporting Navigating Change as a one-on-one family navigator and facilitator of our family peer support groups, Shor is also a certified life coach with a master's in psychology and a certified HOPE champion. HOPE, which stands for Healthy Outcomes from Positive Experiences, is a research-based framework that provides tools to reduce stress, foster well-being, and build resilience for anyone at any age. So, with no further ado, please help me in giving a warm welcome to Shor.
Good afternoon, you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Heather, for that great introduction. So what we're going to be talking about is an introduction to hope for families with IDD. Now, you might see my cat every now and then because he is pretty forceful and he'll just start screaming if I don't let him get in my lap. So I apologize. It's a family thing. And instead of kicking him out and being mean, I'm just going to try to, work with him. So. Let's do this. I'm excited again. I'm Shor Denny, and I think Heather said it all. So let's move on. I really want to, I love hope, and I want to talk to you guys about how we can use these healthy outcomes from positive experiences to totally impact not only your life, your youth's life, but your family's life, right? One of the biggest things that I'm seeing is parental stress, the stress that comes along with everyday life in any household. But when you have extra challenges in your household, if you have a lot more going on as a family with IDD. I wanted to just let you know that hope is here for you and that we know that you're feeling this stress. We know that you have a lack of time. We understand a lot of the challenges that you are dealing with. And we're hoping that this might be one of the answers, one of the things that you incorporate into your world. I want you to look at this picture, and Heather's going to help me a lot throughout this webinar. So right now, in the chat or whatever you have that you can enter into, I want you to start typing in things that you see. What do you see in this picture? There's so much, I understand. Anyone answering? I see one. You guys don't see anything? Is your camera on? Are you guys able to see the screen? There's a lot in there, huh? It's like there's so much I had to I had to kind of stop and think. Heather, could you help me with some of those chats?
Sure. So we have people notice pets, bugs, a child with a handheld device, a religious picture, food. I also see cleaning supplies. Someone
Awesome.
else said books and TV.
Yeah,
Everyone's
there's
in
a
the
lot
same
going
room
on.
together.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, all of that, right? Now, what I want to know is when you looked at all of that stuff in there, what were the first things that you saw? What really did you not looking at an item, but what did you think? Did you think that there were a lot of protections in that room, that that was a safe family? Or when you looked at that picture, do you say, whoa, there's a lot of things, negative things happening in that picture? Are you an A, B, or were they about the same? What did you see in that room?
One person in the chat says that they notice the negatives. Um, Speaking for myself, I've done this exercise before, uh, so I can see both. Two other people also said that the risk factors were easier to see.
Yes. And isn't that just the thing? We always see the negative first, right? And one of the things that Hope wants us to do is to think about that. So when you're looking at that, it's kind of a type one, type two type of a concept that Hope has. And that's with type one thinking, it's right off the top of your head, right? It's what you've learned through your career and your life. It's your biases. It's all of that in one, and it just comes off. Ah, I saw. So right now, I want you to take a moment because when we have a lot of things going on in our life and we have a lot of stress, sometimes what we see is not actually reality. We kind of see things way harsher than what they are. And in this picture, it's like upside down. The lens is upside down that we're seeing things, we see them, but we're not seeing them in the right perspective. So when you go to this type 1, type 2 thinking of hope, what they're saying is, we know you did that type 1, everybody does it, but we want you to take that moment, take a breath, slow down, and now really think about what it is that you're looking at. Think about what it is you're experiencing. And with that, I think it will might open the picture up a little more. So in navigating change and going through the peer support groups, what I noticed was there were a lot of things that our parents were like, wait, I don't know. So in type 1, we're going to pop to that. My youth can't do that, or I'm not able to, right? These examples on the left. But with type 2 thinking, we go to my youth can't do that too, but my youth's able to do this, right? I'm not able to do it, but I could do this. But it's hard, I can't motivate my youth or even myself. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm just trying to say with this type 1, type 2, that initially we hit a brick wall. But with thinking, with bringing your supports together, you can get to type 2 where you find out that actually you do have options, right? It's not as bad as it seems. So now let's look at this picture again, really quick. What do you see? Do you see anything different in this picture? Now that we know in the beginning you were, but now that I'm looking at it, taking a little more time. Well, let's talk about those bugs, right? Let's start off with, I think, the elephant in the room, which is those bugs. Now, when you have a family that doesn't have a lot of income and they are trying to survive, it's not them that may have the bugs, but the building that they live in, right? And they're trying to combat them bugs, but they're still there. So does that mean that the family isn't healthy and strong, right? So it's almost like saying some things may be out of our control, but that doesn't make the whole situation bad, right? There are still those positives that are coming in. So, with healthy outcomes, we are going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about stress. How do we relieve that stress that we are coming up with? And in the introduction to Hope, they have this great little mission statement. Our vision is a world that recognizes honor and promotes positive experiences because they are fundamental to people's health and well being. And I really believe that hope in small letters is really all that we live for, right? The hope of, the hope to. So hope is so important in motivation and having a positive attitude. So let's take a poll. And I don't know if any of you families have learned about adverse childhood experiences. So if you could put in a chat an ABCD, do you know anything about ACEs? Do you have a little knowledge or do you have no knowledge at all about what adverse childhood experiences are? It's a technical term, it's a whole theory, but it impacts every one of our lives.
I haven't seen anyone respond yet in the chat. Um, Speaking for myself, before I was a graduate student getting my master's in social work, I had maybe heard about the concept of adverse childhood experiences, but I didn't realize um, how impactful they could be in health outcomes. So I've learned more about that. Okay, someone else did say so they know some, but still have more to learn, which I
Yes,
think,
we
yep.
all
And
do.
then, yeah, some people know a little bit more about them than others, but I think, like they said, everybody could learn a little bit more.
Right, right. So let's talk about ACEs. Adverse childhood experiences are things that have happened to your youth, to your mom, to your dad, right? It's all of us that happened before the age of 18. And I added your mom and your dad because they impacted you. So their ACEs count, right? Like your ACEs are going to count for your youth. So when you look in the middle, you'll see the three topics. Those are 10 adverse experiences that can happen to a person before the age of 18. When the ACE study came out, those were the main 10 questions that they asked. For each question, you get 1 point. So I'm going to give you a quick second, you guys, look at them. How many of them are you? I'm not going to ask you. It's personal to you. I do other things where we go into this, but right now, just note how many of these happen to you. And you can look at your child. How many have happened to your youth? On the right, they are adverse experiences that are outside of the home, right? So you can add those on. I'm just going to tell you guys right now, I have all of them in the middle and three of them on the side. So my ACE score is a 13. Now, as we go through this, you're going to see these numbers, some numbers, and I just want you to know that there's life after 10, right? I'm just going to say there's life after 10. 1 in 5 San Diegans have experienced four or more of those ACEs. So if you count it up to four, you're average. Don't feel too bad about it. If you count it under four, in my world, you had a blessed life, right? But the thing is, when we talk about these ACEs, it doesn't stop at 18. So some of you might not have experienced those things before 18, but you experienced them after, right? So you still get that same count as far as I'm concerned, because those adverse things that happen to you, they're still with you. They can still be following you. Now, in San Diego, what they found out was the largest number of people are dealing with emotional abuse. You might have thought it would be physical, but it's mostly emotional abuse that is happening and harming those in our community. So it's so important to ensure that we are good within ourselves and that we can help others. Look at this slide and count again. I look at this slide and I can count so many things. Now, this might not be where I am every day, but let a lot of things happen to me in the week and my stress level has spiked up. I can come on here and tell you problems concentrating, language delays. I can't think. I have problems controlling my emotions. I won't sleep, right? All of these things are part of our stress and how our body processes the stressors that we have. You might even see these in your youth that you are working with or any family members. So it's so common. We all have it. And that's one thing I just want to say through this whole presentation is you're not out of the ordinary. These are ordinary symptoms that we're all dealing with. And that's the challenge. How do we deal with them? Some are doing it real positively, some are not. And if you're not dealing with them positively, these types of things can happen. Your coping strategies, right? I'm very overstressed. I'm going to drink because drinking makes me feel better. But after a long term, drinking could be your challenge, right? You can get cirrhosis of the liver. You can have all of these challenges that are going to happen to your body. So in looking at this slide, you can see that the outcomes of having 4, 5, 6 ACEs can be negative depending on how you cope. I also want to ask you about positive childhood experiences. How do you feel about your knowledge of positive childhood experiences? Do you guys, have you heard of the PCEs? A, B, C, D,
Mhm.
E? Nothing at
Let's
all.
see. Here we go. Um, I see a C and just a yes. So there are definitely some people that have heard about it. I know I actually am a trained presenter in Hope as well, and I remember, but prior to going to that training, I had no idea about them. And I'm excited that you're about to share share about them with everybody because it's a little mind blowing.
Well, let's get into it. One thing that I want you guys to remember that families are resilient and that Hope wants to celebrate that. And we want to talk about strengths, not weaknesses. There was a study that was done through Hope, several studies. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to ask if identify any ACEs, look at those positive experiences, and then see how does that correlate in our mental wellness. And what they came up with were these 7 questions. Now I asked them because ACE has 10. I said, why don't you have 10 questions, right? And they said it had to do with funding. So there's a lot more going on. But with these 7 questions, take a moment. I'm not going to ask you your number, but read each one and score 1 for each item. And I want to stress here that it doesn't have to be that it was your whole life, like enjoying participating in community traditions. You didn't have to grow up doing it, right? Even though this is focused on youth. Feel you could have done it. I remember going to this event or that event, not that it was all across your lifespan, is what I'm trying to say. Well, with my 13 ACE, was hungry. I'm going to show you how I use this. I looked at this and I saw these 7, and I, with type 1 thinking, saw none. I was very bummed. I sat back and said, I never had a positive experience. But that's because I was looking at it like, do you feel like you're able to talk to your family about your feelings for my whole life, right? Or, did you feel like somebody stood by you for my whole life? But what I had to do was use type 2 thinking. And when I used my type 2 thinking, I realized, not that it was my whole life, but I had those moments. I had those times where I did enjoy some community traditions. There were some times we moved so much, there was so much going on in my youth, but there was a time where we were starving. When I was in 5th grade, we were moving so much. I moved to a new school and it was lunchtime, and my father had told me that we were starving. We didn't have food because we were vegetarians. I was at this new school. I didn't get into the lunch line. I was just standing there, and a teacher came up to me and said, "Why are you just standing there?" And, we had this conversation, and she put me in the lunch line and signed me up for the lunch program. Now, it was so impactful that I still remember what I ate that day. That is resilience, right? That is some hope coming into my life. It wasn't a long period, but it was hope, and it helped me become what I am today. So when we look at this, I want you to, nothing is black and white. There's always that gray area. So what the studies that Hope did said was that people at the bottom, if you had 0 to 2 on that last slide, or if you had 3 to 5 or 6 to 7, it's saying that the more PCEs you have, the better your outcomes are going to be. The less you're going to have to go to the therapist, right? The less times you may be so overwhelmed that you don't know what to do. I can't even picture that life, but maybe you have it where, you have those 6 and 7 PCEs and you're strong, right? You're strong and you've got that community around you and you have all of these supports built in. It also showed in another study that if you have a lot of positive experiences, that it reduces disease in your body. So the more positivity that you're building in your life, into your family's life, the less sickness will be in your family. And the research indicated that it is more harmful to not have positive experiences than to have those ACEs in your life. So again, with my 13, when I look at it, I have so many positive things that have come into my life and that I've built into my life that I can support myself mentally with what I've put around me, with the coping strategies and the support. So let's talk about that. Hope is broken into 4 blocks, right? 4 different lanes. One is relationships, and how do we build that positive relationship with ourselves, with our mates, our families, our youth, that environment. How do I make my environment safe and hopeful? How do I make my engagement? And also, how does that impact my emotional growth? And how do I bring emotional growth into all that I'm doing? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of slides. I'm going to be talking to you about what hope is in that situation. And then I'm going to start asking you towards the end, like, how are you using it? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I know you're using it already in your life. You just didn't know what it was. So now that you're going to be able to identify it, it's probably going to make you feel great when you say, dang, I do that already. Oh, I do that already as we are going through this. So healthy outcomes for positive relationships, build strong relationships. It's like bringing that positivity when you come, right? One of the things that I have to tell people is that you can't go somewhere and expect them to give you that positivity. You need to bring the positivity with you and take it to that environment. And that's how we build that hope. So when we are looking at our youth, when we're trying to engage with our families, I want us, as we're building these positive relationships, to focus on small, positive daily interactions. Nothing has to be real big, right? It could be sharing a popsicle from the refrigerator together, right? Celebrate progress, not perfection, right? That one step has to be celebrated, the half step, the quarter step. If they took a step backwards, it still needs to be celebrated because they tried to take the step. So build those routines that support keeping your youth and you stable mentally, physically, and through safety, right? That being stable, and seek connection with other family members. I don't know how many of your families that I've talked to that the parents feel like it's their responsibility, and we've got to bear this weight. But I want to tell you, you have a whole community around you, and starting with your family, then to, your extended family, and then to us, because we are here for you to help support you as you're building the supports around your family. And when you partner with professionals, do it intentionally. So I'm going to ask you to have some authority and advocate when you're talking to your professionals, right? You want to participate, but you know what's best for your family and what your family needs, and that you make sure that that is known at all times, and that you're always advocating and supporting what is right for you. So participate in those programs and the coaching and the skill building, right? And strengthen your family relationships. So oh, I only took it to 2 slides here. So when you're building those relationships, just stay consistent with communication. And again, I'm going to say, bring that positivity with you. Don't accept it to just manifest. It's in our intention. When we talk about environments, I think it's one of the biggest, right? Because where we live is an environment. Is that environment positive? Now, we might go through the, oh, it's safe, so I have food, oh, but is it positive? Are we bringing that positivity with us, even through the challenges? Are we doing that type 2 thinking to say, okay, this happened, but there is a more positive side to this? And trying to really push you into thinking of that way of using type 2 to improve the way that you're thinking about your life, right? So with our environments, you want to have predictable routines. I know my daughter, if you take her routine away or you throw some wrench in there, she doesn't deal with it very well. And then we've got all those challenges we have to go through. So being inclusive and making sure that we're exposing our youth to more, not isolating them, but kind of giving them that little push to gain those new experiences that they are going to use to build their life. Using trauma-informed and cultural responsive strategies. I can't even see out my screen, so sorry. Responsive strategies that you can use. And in this, when we say culturally, a lot of times people think we're talking race. that culture is so much more than race, right? There's the culture within your home, your family unit has a culture. You could be fishing, fishers. Well, fishing is a culture, having that fishing culture. So just, build that cultural support around your youth and just try to stay open and consistent with conversation. I I'll go on and we will actually build at the end. I'm going to have you guys ask you some questions. And so I'm just going to go through each of these until we get to all four. So the strategies for you parents, enable meaningful participation. I know you're doing it. You're trying to get them into Kung Fu or you've got them going to piano class or just again, I told you you're already doing some of these things. So, just ensuring that the environments that they're going into are positive for them, that they're bringing positivity with them, or you are, as you're taking them to though and participate in these events, that you reduce the barriers, working with us and other professionals in your world to ensure that any barriers to your youth being able to do what they do is cleared away, create consistency, reduce uncertainty. We already talked about that. Use positive reinforcement. And create a calm, structured space. I think that you guys have to do this, period, in your lifestyle. So just making sure that you bring the positivity with it, right? Creating that calm, structured space. It doesn't have to be a positive space. It can be quiet and structured, but where's the love? Where's the hope? Where's the joy that we're putting into these situations? I know a lot of times you parents might want to say, and families might want to say, well, I don't have it in me. Where do I get the hope? And I'm going to tell you right now that it is all around you. That hope is all around you and it is within you. By reaching out to us, by doing these types of, educational components, by building your relationships and by bringing hopeful people, positive people into your life, it builds that hope and that positivity within you. So it all comes together in building one block upon the other. With engagement, when we're talking about hope, it's feeling connected. It's making sure that you're connecting with those other families, like if you're in the peer support groups. It's making sure that you're connecting with your neighbors and your family members to make sure that they can bring as much support and positivity to your life as they can. And this applies for you and your youth, the whole family. And with your youth, we're saying they're more engaged by having choices, right? Having that voice to be able to say, and we know sometimes it's not verbal, but there are ways that you communicate with your youth and basically what it is that they want and that you try to build on that and help them to feel heard and participate in the decision making that is going on. And that's a big part of what self-determination they're trying to talk about, making sure that the youth have a voice and, just making sure that they are acknowledged in the meetings and that they are a part of in all of those environments so that their strength can be recognized and that, they can gain from that engagement. It's also being present and involved. I really want to go to the professional engagement because I was speaking with someone and they had a big meeting coming up and they were scared. And I just want to say, and I said to them, I said, I want you to go into this meeting with authority. I want you to go into this meeting knowing what your rights are so that when you're in that meeting, you are being the advocate. We're not asking people for stuff, you guys. I want you to know that you have the power and the right to demand, angrily. I'm not trying to be a militant up in here, but advocating for your family and for your youth is the number one thing that we must do in the IEP meetings. Are they setting that IEP up right? Do they even know my child? Are they seeing the things that I'm seeing and making sure that they do and that we are advocating and working towards making sure our youth are seen and that our needs are met? So build those relationships. Try to have a relationship with your SC, not just I call her when I need something. I'm saying try to build a relationship with all of those that are supporting you in this community. And I'm going to guarantee you that you'll get more positivity, more hope, and more support by doing that. When we talk emotional growth, when I first learned this, I was like, emotional growth, right? Well, none of us really know what that is, right? We're just starting to talk about self-regulation and, coping strategies. And so I just want to say with emotional growth that every day we are growing, and every day that you put these building blocks in place in your life, you are building emotional growth, right? And that's going to be able to help you prepare for the transitions, and to be buffered as you're going through the storms. So teach self-calming strategies to yourself. We do some of those in the parent peer support, and I'm sure that Heather and in all the other groups that you're going into, that you're learning that. Breathe, learn how to breathe, and teach your family these skills is very, very important. Don't keep it to yourself. Keep it to your families, and that way they will, when they are upset, they'll, I need to breathe. Or when you say, breathe, honey, they go, yes, breathe, right? And it becomes a part of your coping strategies within your home, right? If it's tapping, if it's whatever it is that that is relaxing and soothing to yourself or your youth, bring that, incorporate it into your challenges and your problem solving and in your decision making. That emotional growth will create safe, supportive home environments. It's encouraging open communication, especially when you hear what you don't want to hear coming out of their mouths. How are we coping? How are we dealing with that when they don't like what's coming out of your mouth? How are we helping them to understand that what are the good coping skills versus the bad? Is something that comes in here so that everybody has an understanding of the rules of how we're going to play this game, right? That, those are outside the boundaries. We're all within the boundaries, and staying consistent with that. So I had to have 3 slides on emotional growth because it is just so much to help you identify your feelings, be able to express those feelings. Some of us have to learn these things. It's not something that happened in my family. So it's some skill that I had to gain on my own, normalizing that when I'm excited, I'm excited. It's okay that I'm excited. It's all right. It's real. But then how do I use um, the word just went out. How do I cope, and how do I soothe myself? How do I bring myself down so that I can cope and still think? And how do we do that with our youth? Is that when we see them excited, sitting with them, breathing? Okay, baby, let's breathe. Okay, breathe again, right? Each time, do it 5 times. Is it something like that? Is it working on a puzzle? Okay, let's do this puzzle because and your brain, you going, you are freaking out. So come on over here. Let me see what ways I'm using to soothe you that are also soothing me so that I don't go to frick off on you because, that kind of thing. How do we bring it down by ourselves so that we can think, cope, react, and take action in more positive ways? So build those routines that every morning we're going to do yoga for 10 minutes, right? Or you do it alone. Close yourself in a closet wherever you have that little private space and do it yourself, right? And get yourself ready for the day. Maybe it's a morning routine or an evening routine that you do to soothe yourself at night and to bring you down. And if you're already doing those, and incorporate those into your family's life and into your child's life so that they learn that, okay, I'm kind of excited, but I can do this, right? And it soothes me. And that's really what emotional growth is. It's having the knowledge that this is where I need to limit it, and this is where I need to go into soothing and relaxing rather than continue to push and struggle and, getting into those conflicts. How can we reduce those conflicts by bringing positivity, breathing, and love into the environment? So for this one, break tasks into manageable pieces, celebrate effort, as I said before, even if they take a step back, they tried. Build that confidence, not only in them, but in you. We have to remember that you are so important in this family. You need the support more than anybody else because you're the one holding the family up. So as we're going through that, these using these hope techniques, I hope that you will see how easy they are to use in your life every day and hopefully start incorporating them. So how does hope reduce stress? Right here, I want you to how start pick in the first one or two, and the second one, pick one from each one. And I want you to throw in the chat. How can you strengthen your daily interactions to help your child feel safe, valued, and understood? And you can tell us I did it all. If that's what you think, I already got this down. But let me know. How can you? And who are the trusted people in your child's life? And how can you help build and maintain not just those relationships, but maybe grow them? So this is a little thinking, little how are we going to add to what we're doing without actually really doing that much work, right? Then you can go to the engagement. Where does my child feel a sense of belonging and how can we expand those connections, right? Where do you think your youth feel the most comfortable? How can you build on that? How can I connect with other families, programs, or partners in my community to help support my child's journey? And it says my child's journey, but this is your journey too. So how are we supporting our journey? What changes at home and in any environment can you do to make your youth more comfortable and feel more confident? How can you advocate in your youth surroundings? And the last two are what experiences help your child build independence and confidence in their own way? And how can you support your youth in exploring those interests? So as I said, I already know you're doing this stuff, but right now I'm challenging you to what can you add? What more can you do?
So looking at the chat, um, a couple people have mentioned, letting the youth have, giving them the opportunity to make some of their own choices and be involved in the decision making. Um, I know, my personal experience is as a sister of a woman with profound IDD. So she's nonverbal and needs a lot of support with everything. But I know that, letting her pick, giving her the choice between like what shirt she's going to wear that day or, what she wants to drink at lunch, there's a lot of small opportunities, even for people that don't have as much independence.
Well,
I know for myself as a caregiver that learning the, um, learning techniques that calm myself down when I do get super stressed, that just adds, all of these building blocks, they just flow into each other. So I know if I can have the power to, calm myself down, then that, whatever environment I'm in, then that adds to that safety, that stability of the environment for everyone that's there. It helps me be able to have more productive, warmer conversations with people that maybe had pushed my buttons, with their
yes,
family member and then that's a skill that you can take even outside of your family into like your work environment, wherever you are. If you are able to calm yourself, your relationships, your conversations are going to be better. Some of the other comments that have just popped in, um, Oh yeah, listening skills, being able to listen better when your loved one is trying to
Yes.
share, giving them age appropriate responsibilities,
Yes.
advocating for the small needs that make a big difference. For example, noise canceling headphones at work.
Yes.
I laugh at that one because my mom is my sister's primary caregiver, and my sister makes a lot of noise. And my mom has taken over the last few years, like when she's bathing my sister, she puts her headphones on because she's like, that. Again, the environment is so loud that it stresses my mom out, and then she gets impatient. It's just feet. So she's like, oh, if I put these on, then I don't get as stressed, and the whole thing just goes much smoother. Um,
Beautiful.
Chores, people are talking about, giving them chores like cleaning their shoes by themselves. Um, Something that, all of these comments and everything you just talked about in this, I love that you gave so many specific, concrete examples of what each of these building blocks can look like for youth, for their family, for the people, the professionals that support them. And I think there was something in an earlier slide that went by kind of fast, but this idea that so much of our stress comes not so much from, there's the event, there's the diagnosis that causes stress. It can
Yes.
be scary, it can be upsetting, but it's the sort of lack of support around that sometime, or the feeling that we don't have any control over what's happening to us that exacerbates that
Yeah.
support. And I feel, this hope framework is so empowering because these are all things that we have agency in our own lives on. We can support that development of self-advocacy and agency in our youth, and then once we're able to sort of take some action to make things better for ourselves, we feel more in control, and then our stress goes down. I mean, I love this so much.
Yes,
um
yes, yes.
yes.
So, the main thing that I get from hope is that we need hope, right? And that we need that positivity. It's so important. And I know a lot of people that are negative. And when you give them they're in a situation, they see the negative, they don't see the positive. And I've noticed that their lives are so hard. They're miserable. There's really no joy, and everything that comes at them is another hardship. And it's just such I feel a sad way to live. When something you said, Heather, it is a kind of a choice to choose hope. It is a choice to choose that positive lane rather than that negative lane. And we are just hoping that you, as parents and families, will extend that hope onto not just your youth, yourself, but to all of the people that you come in contact with. And hope, it means to me that I found that I build more relationships now that I've thought of hope. And those relationships, I make a point of ensuring that they are positive, right? That I'm connecting in a positive manner with people. With hope, it helped me see that my environment is very, very important to my well-being. And actually, I've made changes in my life in so many areas to ensure that I do have a positive environment in my home, right? It's ensuring that when I'm interacting with my daughter and we're engaging, that I hear all of her challenges and everything but as I'm looking at her, I'm building hope into what I say to her about her challenges, giving her hope. But I'm also looking at my emotional health, and in my head, things can be being said, but I'm able to regulate how I'm communicating so that I'm giving the more positive to her, right, to my daughter, so that she's gaining the good out of the situation. Um, I've learned with the emotional growth that breathing before I go and talk about a certain situation helps that conversation go smoother. Breathing after stressful situations helps me feel better even if it's still stressful. So for you guys, I want to know, and I think it's my next slide. How do you use hope in your daily life? Not what we've just taught you, but hearing what we just said hope is. I already know you're using it in some areas. So can you tell us, how are you using hope? And if you can think of the building block, tell me which building block you think, or which building block do you like the most? Which one resonates with you, that you feel would be the block that you either want to work on or that you do work on the most?
While we're waiting for people, giving people a chance to sort of think about it and put their thoughts in the chat, I just wanted to comment about one of the things that I really appreciate about the hope approach and the hope framework is that it doesn't discount the negative experiences or ask us to minimize the things that we've been through. So it's not this sort of like, oh, just get over that and think
Right.
positive. It's like this very, um, again, I go back to that empowerment where it's like, yes, there are things that have happened. There are situations that are really rough and challenging, and there's a lot of systems in our healthcare. That's what I think. Systems in support for families with IDD. There's access limitation. There's all of these things going on that are very real, and very challenging, and that we can all advocate for making change on those levels. But having, I think back to the beginning of the slide where you show sort of like the camera lens, and that I think that hope sort of allows us to go from that type one thinking where we're only seeing the negative, and it just sort of expands the frame, right? And it expands our perspective so that it doesn't turn away from the negative. It just sort of expands it. So it's like, oh, yeah, this sucks. But there's all of these other things that are good in my life. And these are
Yes.
some things that I can do to add good to my life. Um, so, yeah, I love that. Um, let's
You just said
see.
that with that. There are bad things going on in my, there's bad things going on in everybody's life. I cannot believe there's one person that doesn't have something bad. When I first learned ACEs, they said, think of a piece of fabric with a whole bunch of holes in it. Those holes are our challenges, right? Our ACEs, all of the, and then think of hope as coming through and weaving through, right, the fabric to kind of reinforce the fabric, because the holes are still going to be there, but the hope is going to reinforce you while you're dealing with those challenges or those holes. So I thought that was really interesting, because yes, my aces, I'm not going to ever get rid of them. The thing, my experiences, all of that negativity, it's always going to be a part of who I am. But with hope, I've learned that yes, that was happening, but this positive thing was happening too. Right now, you could be going through challenges within your life. And what Hope is trying to say to you is yes, but look for that positive as well. And try to build that positive around those negatives that are happening in our lives, because they are happening. We know that. And there's no miracle cure. We're never going to get on any training and say, oh, now you'll never have a problem again. But we can say that you will have hope, you will have positivity, you will have love, and you will have relationships as you're going through.
Wonderful. So I don't see there aren't any responses into these particular questions, but I'm sure that the wheels are turning for everyone. Um, and I also think
Oh, no, what happened? Keep
there's a
going.
lot that people can do. I think about people in their professional capacities. So people that are working in support positions, maybe they're working at day programs, maybe they are regional center service coordinators, people that aren't necessarily tied in directly to a family with someone with IDD, but things that they can do to sort of promote these building blocks and I think that you and I have definitely seen the power of peer support as we've been supporting families in this Navigating Change program. But I think that, if you are someone that supports families who are in this world of IDD, let them know there are a lot of organizations that offer peer support groups for families, for parents and caregivers. And that can be sort of the way into opening up this sort of like space to even start thinking about the positive experiences once you sort of get that connection and get through the isolations that sometimes people are feeling when they're in the trenches of caregiving. I think for youth, there are there's a lot of focus on, as youth are transitioning to adulthood, like education going to look like for them? What is work going to look like for them? What is housing and their living situation going to look for them? Which are all important things, but there's also this entire world of social recreation. And again, there are a ton of organizations here in San Diego, across the country, that offer opportunities for the youth to have that social connection, whether it is, adaptive sports programs, social skills classes and groups, um, those sorts of things where they are also getting to have the connection with their peers is really important. Um, so that is it. Oh, I see that. Thank you for posting this. I don't want to, I want to give you a chance to say anything that you want to wrap this up.
Hey, did we get two comments?
Let's see. They're about the survey. So, well, one person says, I love hope. And there we go. I just posted a bunch of links in there. Um, Oh, did I put an old link in there? Hopefully not. But if not, I will be sending out an email with the recording of this and the link to do the survey. I've also included some additional links on this page that I hope, um, you know, people might be interested in. One is a link to Hope itself, if you want to learn more about that. There is a link to our In the Loop newsletter. So, In the Loop is a newsletter that we put out every month, and it highlights the latest policy and practice developments affecting individuals with IDD at the federal, state, and local levels. So there's a link to sign up to get that newsletter to stay sort of abreast of things that are happening in the world of IDD. And there's, I think that is everything that is on there. So I want to thank Shor, thank you very, very much for your time today, giving this presentation. I think it is going to help a lot of people. And thank you, everybody else, for spending your time with us today. I hope that you found this information useful. Our next webinar will be in July. And at that webinar, I actually am going to be facilitating a panel of other adult siblings of people with disabilities to talk about the experience of being a sibling of someone with IDD growing up, and also sort of how, as adults, we are supporting and advocating for our siblings and also supporting our aging parents. Um, so there's a lot to talk about, and we'll sort of touch the surface in that
That's
one
a lot.
in July. Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, thank you, Shor. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for being here. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.